Hello my crochet friends, this is Sarah from Ned and Mimi, and I am so excited to have the chance in this class to show you how to make these lovely cozy fingerless mittens. Now I have the coldest hands in the world, but I can't very well go around my house in the wintertime wearing gloves all the time, so I have found that fingerless mittens are the perfect solution. So in the class I am going to make the adult small size, but I have actually written the crochet pattern for 7 sizes from toddler up to adult extra large. So do grab that at the link below and then you can follow along for the size that you are making. So before we get started crocheting, there are just a few things that we need to cover. So first up is our materials. So for these mittens, you are going to need a weight 3 or a DK weight yarn. And for my mittens, I used 2 different types of yarn. I used Alpaca Cloud DK from WeCrochet, and I also used Kindred DK from WeCrochet. Now both these yarns are very similar. They're both baby alpaca based, but the Kindred does have a strand of cotton running through it as well. Now, unfortunately, the Kindred is no longer available, but for this video, I felt that the lighter colour would have just been really difficult to see, so that's why I decided to go ahead and use the Kindred anyway. So you'll also need a 4.5mm or US 7 sized crochet hook. Now, if you tend to crochet a little tightly, you might find that you need a larger hook, or if you tend to crochet very loosely, you might find that you need a smaller hook. So do check the gauge in the pattern and make sure that you are able to match that with your hook. Now, a few more things that you're going to need: some stitch markers, and if you can have 2 of them that are able to lock in place, that will be great. And you'll also need a yarn needle for weaving in your ends and scissors. And of course, you're also going to need the crochet pattern so that you can follow along for the size that you are making. Now, if you are able to print out the pattern, it is a really good idea, if you can, to go through it before you start crocheting and highlight or mark everything that is relevant to your size. So row counts, stitch counts, all of the sections that apply to the size that you are making. And this is just going to make your life so much easier, because as you're working, you will really clearly be able to see which sections you need to work and which ones you don't. Now, I just have one more thing to share with you before we start crocheting, and that is a quick overview of how these mittens are constructed. So we will begin with the cuff. This is a ribbed cuff and it's worked flat in rows and then folded and seamed. And then we will start working the body of the mitten into the edge of that cuff. And we have some even rounds here for the wrist section, and then we will start slowly increasing the width to create the thumb gusset. So if you have never heard the word thumb gusset before, don't worry. All it means is this little triangle here where we're increasing the width to accommodate the thumb. Once the thumb gusset increases are done, we're going to split our work here to create the top section and the thumb hole. And then we will work some extra rounds up here at the top and a few extra rounds on the thumb as well. Now this is the left mitten. So all of our increases and the seam, which is just the start and the end of the round, that's all sitting on this side. Now on the right mitten, it is very, very slightly different, even though it is almost identical. But on the right mitten, the seam line of the increases are sitting here. So that's the only difference between the way the 2 mittens are constructed. And if this seems a little bit confusing, don't worry. Once we start crocheting, it will all make perfect sense. So I think that's enough talking from me now. Let's go ahead and start crocheting, and we are going to begin with the left mitten. So to begin the ribbing, we will start with a slip knot, and then for the size that I am making, I am going to chain 10. And now I'm going to work my first stitch into the second chain from the hook, so skipping over that very last chain that we worked. To make my first stitch, I am going to yarn over, insert my hook into that second chain from the hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. And now I have 3 loops on my hook. And to finish the stitch, I'm just going to rotate my hook slightly away from me and then pull that first loop all the way through the other 2. And that is the first stitch done. So let's do that slowly again. We will yarn over, insert the hook into the next chain, yarn over and pull up a loop, then rotate the hook a little bit away and continue to pull all the way through. So this stitch is called the yarn over slip stitch. So it's very like a regular slip stitch, we just have that extra yarn over at the start. So I'm going to continue working all the way along my chain, and at the end of this first row I will have 9 stitches worked. And that's my first row done. So let's get straight into row 2 now. So I will chain 1 and turn, and that chain does not count as a stitch. And now I'm just going to continue working my yarn over slip stitches into the back loop all the way across this row. So I will yarn over, insert my hook into that back loop, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then continue to finish the stitch as we did previously. And that is all you need to know to be able to complete this row and to be able to complete all the rest of the ribbing rows. So I really love this stitch pattern for crochet ribbing because it gives us a gorgeous knit purl effect. And even though it does take a little bit of practice at the start, I do think it is worth it. And honestly, after a few rows, you will just be flying along. So just one little thing to look out for here, at the end of the row, it can be a little bit tricky sometimes to find that back loop of the last stitch. So do just keep an eye on your stitch count just to make sure you are not missing any stitches. So I'm going to go ahead now and work a few more rows just to give you a really good idea of what the ribbing is going to look like when we're finished. Okay, so that is 4 rows done, and we can already see this knit purl effect starting to form. So I'm going to go ahead now and work the remaining rows that I need to for the size that I am making. So I need a total of 26 rows, and you can just follow along with the pattern, work the number of rows that you need to for your size, and then I will see you back here very shortly to seam the edges of the ribbing together. Okay, so I have finished my 26 rows of ribbing and I'm really pleased with how this is looking. So the next step is to just fold the ribbing in half, and then we're going to seam these 2 edges together. So I'm going to use a slip stitch seam, or if you wish you could use the tail here as well if it's long enough. So let's go ahead now and chain 1 and just make sure that the last row is facing towards us. And then I'm going to insert my hook into this very last stitch, insert it into the same point on the opposite side, and then I'll just slip stitch as evenly as I can all the way across. there is the seam done. So I'm just going to flip my work around, and this is going to be the outside of the mitten. So we can get straight into round one of the body now. So I'll pop my hook back in here, and I'm just going to keep my tail down like so, and I'll weave that in later. So for the first round of the body, we're going to work a round of single crochet stitches, and we're going to work all around the edge of the ribbing. So I'm going to work 1 stitch for each row of ribbing, so that's 26 stitches for me, plus 1 extra that I'm going to squeeze in here at the seam line. So that will be a total of 27 stitches for the size that I am making. So I will go ahead and chain 1 to start, and then just start single crocheting as evenly as I can all around the edge of the ribbing. And I do think with this ribbing pattern, it's quite easy to see the loops that we need to pick up all the way around. Now I'm just going to pause for 1 second here and pop in a stitch marker to mark the first stitch of the round, and that's going to make my life much easier when I get back to the start of the round. So I'll just go ahead now and continue to single crochet evenly all the way around. Okay, so that is my first round done. Now at this point, it is a good idea to do a quick stitch count just to make sure you have the correct number of stitches for the size that you are making. So let us get straight into round 2 now. So I'll just pop out my stitch marker, and for the rest of this pattern, we are going to work in continuous rounds, which means that we are not going to join with a slip stitch at the end of our round. We're going to work directly into this first stitch. So that's why the stitch markers are so important to help you keep track of the start of your rounds. So round 2 is going to be a round of herringbone half double crochet. So if this is a new stitch to you, don't worry, we'll go through it very slowly, and after a few rounds you'll be absolutely flying along. So to begin, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and now I have 3 loops on my hook, and I'm going to continue to draw that first loop through the second like so, and then I'll yarn over and pull through to complete the stitch. So let's do another one. Yarn over, insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. And then I find if I just pinch this first loop here with my thumb and finger, it's much easier to draw through that second loop. And we'll complete the stitch as normal. So for this round, we are just going to continue working our herringbone half double crochets. And of course, not forgetting to mark that first stitch with our marker. So I'll just go ahead and continue working all the way around. So this stitch does take a little bit of practice. So that is my second round done. Now, depending on the size that you are making, you may or may not need to work some extra repeats in this section. So do check the pattern to see how many extra rounds you need to work before we begin the thumb gusset section. So I need to work 2 more rounds. So I'm going to work a round of single crochet and herringbone half double crochet. And then once I have those done, I will see you back here to start the thumb gusset shaping. Okay, so that is my first 4 rows complete. Now we can go straight into shaping for the thumb gusset. And in this section, all we're going to do is add some increase rounds. And we're just going to increase the width gradually on this side, and that is to accommodate our thumb. So let's get straight into it now. So for our increase rounds, we are going to increase by 1 stitch every round. Now, no matter what size you're making, you should have finished the previous section on a herringbone half double crochet row. So our next row is going to be a row of single crochets. So to do our first increase, we're just going to do 2 single crochets into that first stitch, and that's the increase done. And the rest of the round is just going to be simple single crochet all the way around. And there is our first increase round done. So let's get straight into the second increase round now. So this is a round of herringbone half double crochet, and to increase I'm just going to do 2 stitches in the first stitch, just like I did in the previous round. And that's it. So now I just need to mark my first stitch, and I will continue to herringbone half double crochet all the way around. And that is my second increase round complete. Now, no matter what size you are making, you are going to need to work some more increase rounds, but they do differ depending on the size that you're making, so do check the pattern for that. So for my size, I need to work an extra 6 increase rounds, and I also need to work 2 even rounds where I'm not increasing the stitch count, but I am adding some length to the thumb gusset. So we'll just be alternating single crochet rounds and herringbone half double crochet rounds. So I'm going to go ahead now and work the rest of my increase rounds, and then I will see you back here to create the split for the thumb hole. Okay, so I have completed the thumb gusset, and you can see that I have a nice increase section here, and that is going to accommodate the thumb on our left hand. So let's go straight into the next part now, and that is to create the thumb hole. So what we're going to do is begin our round as normal, but then skip some stitches, and that's where the thumb is going to go. So no matter what size you are making, you should have finished the thumb gusset section on a herringbone half double crochet round. So you will begin this thumb split round on a single crochet. So we're going to single crochet in the first stitch and just pop our marker back in here. And now I'm going to chain 2 and skip a number of stitches. So the number of stitches that you're going to skip will depend on the size that you're making. So I need to skip 9. So I'll just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I'll do a single crochet in the 10th. And that's where our thumb is going to go. So the rest of the round is super easy. We'll just single crochet all the way around back to the start. Alright, so as you can probably guess, the next round is going to be a herringbone half double crochet round. So we are just going to herringbone half double crochet in each stitch and in each chain around. So we have skipped these stitches, they're going to be for the thumb, and we have 2 chains here that we need to work into. So I am just going to do my herringbone half double crochet into each of those. This is a little bit tricky. Let's try that one again. There we go. And then we're just going to herringbone half double crochet all the way around. And that is the herringbone half double crochet round done. Now, before I continue, I am just going to pause for a second, and I am going to mark these 2 single crochet stitches on either side of the thumb hole. So if you have the type of stitch markers that you can lock in place, they're probably the best, but honestly anything at all that you can use to mark these stitches will do. So we'll just put the stitch marker around the first single crochet and we will grab another one and put it around that second one. And this is just going to make our lives much easier when we come to do the thumb hole in a little while. Now the rest of the mitten is very, very straightforward. We just need to work some extra even rounds, so no increasing or anything. So again, the number of rounds will depend on the size that you are making. So I need to work another 5 rounds. So I'm going to be just alternating my single crochet and herringbone half double crochet rounds and then finishing on a single crochet round. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and I will meet you back here just to show you how to finish off the top of our mittens with a neat slip stitch round. Okay, so I'm back and I have finished my even rounds at the top of the mitten, and now all I have left to work is a round of slip stitches, which are going to give a lovely neat finish to the top of the mitten. So I'm going to pop out my stitch marker and then just start slip stitching all the way around. And it is important to also mark that slip stitch, because it is going to get a bit confusing when you get back to the start. So try to keep your slip stitches a little bit loose if you can. Don't have them too tight. So I will just fly around here and then I will show you how to finish off the round with a seamless or an invisible join. Okay, so I'm almost back to the start and I just have one slip stitch left to work into, but I am not actually going to work into this slip stitch. So to do our invisible join, we are going to cut our yarn and just pull it all the way through, and then grab your yarn needle and let's finish off this round. So we'll just pop out our stitch marker, and now we are going to thread the needle from bottom to top under both loops of that very first slip stitch. So we'll just pull gently through, and now what we're going to do, this is the tricky bit, is go back through the center of that last slip stitch that we just made. So right through the center and then all the way out the back. And if we pull very, very gently, we create a kind of a false stitch over that one that we missed. And it just gives the most lovely seamless finish, I think. So I love finishing off rounds like this where I can. So now all that's left is to weave in our end here, but I'm actually going to postpone that for a little bit and we'll go straight onto the thumb. Now, I won't lie, this is definitely the trickiest part of the entire pattern, but just take your time and do your best with it. And even though it is a little bit fiddly, you should be able to complete it without too much trouble. So what we're going to do is just start with the thumb hole on our left. So this applies whether you're making the right or the left mitten. So the thumb hole is going to be on the left. We'll pop out that stitch marker and we're going to insert our hook right through the center of that single crochet that we had just marked. Then I will grab a new strand of yarn, pull it through and just chain one to start. So the next stitch I'm going to work is a single crochet 2 together. So we're going to work the first leg into the exact same point there that we joined to, and then we're going to work the second leg into this gap here, and that is just going to help us close up the gap a little bit. Now you can always close up the gap further a little bit later on when you are weaving in your ends. So if the gap is still visible, don't worry, you can sort that out later as well. So let's insert our hook back into that same point that we joined to and pull through. So now I have 2 loops on my hook, then insert it into the gap, yarn over and pull through, 3 loops on my hook, and then we'll just yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to finish. So now I'm just going to single crochet in each stitch that we skipped from that thumb split section until we come to the next marker. Okay, so on the opposite side, we also have this little gap, a little bit tricky to see. And we're going to work another single crochet 2 together here, but this time the first leg is going to go into that gap and the second leg is going to go through that marked stitch. So I'll just pop out my stitch marker, insert my hook into that gap, yarn over and pull up a loop. And now this is the trickiest bit I find. We want to go through the center of that single crochet and it can be a little bit fiddly, but here we go. Give it one more go. Okay, I think we have it that time. And now at the back. Okay. And pull up a loop. So now I have 3 loops on my hook again. And then we'll just yarn over and pull through to complete. So now there's just 2 stitches left in this round. I'm just going to tuck that tail in there for later. So 2 stitches left to work in this round, and they are 2 single crochets into the base of those 2 chains that you worked as part of the thumb split round. So again, this can be a little bit fiddly, but just do your best to get your hook in there. So that's 1 and 2. Okay, so that is the most difficult round of the whole project done. So if you've gotten this far, yay, you don't have too much more left to go. Now, I just realized that I forgot to mark my first stitch, so do that if you can. And let's just go straight into the next round. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that first stitch. So again, not joining or anything, and just work our regular herringbone half double crochet. And let's mark that stitch. Okay, so I'm just going to keep working all the way around with that herringbone half double crochet stitch. Okay, so that is our second round done. Now, as always, depending on the size that you are making, the number of remaining rounds is going to change. So do have a look at the pattern for that to make sure that you're working the correct number of rounds. So I need to work 1 more single crochet round followed by a slip stitch round. So I'm going to go ahead and do those now, and then I will just show you that invisible join again, just so you get to have 1 more look at it. Okay, so I'm almost finished that slip stitch round. I've just got 1 more left to work, but again, we are not going to work into that one. We are going to fasten off and pull through and just grab our yarn needle. Okay, so let's do this once more. We'll pop out the marker, put our hook from bottom to top under both loops of that first slip stitch and pull gently, and then back through the center of that slip stitch all the way out the back. And that's it. So again, just have to weave in that end, but I'm going to postpone that one as well. And that is our left mitten done. So if we turn it this way, you can see that we have all our increases and the seam marking the start and end of each round up along here. And that's going to be on the palm, and then on the outside, it just all looks completely seamless. So let's put that aside for now and get straight onto the right mitten. Okay, so onto the right mitten. Now the good news is if you have finished the left mitten, then this one is going to be absolutely no bother to you. So I have gone ahead and gotten started. So I have crocheted the ribbing, and then I have crocheted the rounds at the wrist as well. So you can just work away up until the same point, and then we are going to work the thumb gusset for the right hand slightly differently. So the only difference here is that we are going to do our increases for the thumb gusset at the end of our round rather than the start. And the reason for this is that on the left hand, we want the seam to sit along this line, and on the right hand, we want it to sit here. So then on the outside of the mittens, they are both going to be identical. So let's go ahead now and start the first thumb gusset round for the right hand. So we're going to start with a single crochet, and then I'm just going to work all the way along until I have one stitch left, and that stitch is where we're going to make our increase. Okay, so just one stitch left to work, so let's do our increase, and we'll do that with just 2 single crochets into that last stitch, and that's the first increase round done. So the next round is going to be our herringbone half double crochet round, so we'll do the exact same thing. We'll just work all the way around until we come to the last stitch, and that's where we'll do our increase. Okay, so I am almost at the end of the round. I've just got one more stitch left to work, so I'm going to do my herringbone half double crochet increase there by just working 2 stitches into that last stitch. Okay, so that's everything that you need to know to be able to do the thumb gusset for the right mitten. So we're just going to work the exact same number of rounds that we did for the left mitten, just keeping the increases at the end of the round. And then the thumb split round is also different for the right hand. So I will go ahead now and work the rest of my thumb gusset rounds, and then I will see you back here to work that thumb split round. And we're back. So if only it was that easy in real life. So the thumb gusset for the right hand side is done, and you can see the increases here, and they're going to sit on the palm of the right hand. So let's get straight into the thumb split round now. So you can possibly guess what we're going to do here. So on the left hand side, we did the thumb hole on the left, and on this one we're going to have the thumb hole on the right. So we're going to be skipping those stitches at the end of our round. So I'm going to go ahead and start now, and then I'm going to single crochet all the way around until I have 10 stitches left. So again, this will differ for the size that you're making, so do check the pattern to see how many stitches you need to leave at the end. Okay, so I have 10 stitches left and now I can create the thumb hole. So I'm going to chain 2 just as we did for the left mitten, skip 9 stitches and just single crochet in the last one. And that's the thumb hole created for the right hand. So now from this point onwards, everything we do is going to be exactly the same as for the left mitten. Our next round will be a round of herringbone half double crochets, and we will also work 1 stitch each into those 2 chains and then mark the single crochets on either side of the thumb hole with our stitch markers. We'll work the exact same number of rounds at the top of the mitten here and do the slip stitch round in exactly the same way, and for the thumb we'll also do it exactly the same. So we'll start with the thumb hole on our left. So even though we are looking at the outside of the mitten, it's absolutely fine to just do the thumb hole starting from here in exactly the same way as for the left mitten, and then we'll be done. All we'll have to do is weave in those ends and we will be able to wear our brand new perfectly fitted mittens. And there we have it, we're all done. So I finally got my act together and I weaved in all my ends, so now my mittens are ready to wear. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed this class, and if you do have any questions or if you just want to check out some of my other patterns, you can find me at nedandmimi.com. So happy crocheting and take care.